Poetry Center, bringing poetry to Paterson since 1980 at Passaic County Community College.
Okay, way to rock the house. That was wonderful. Thank you. Okay, we're going to continue with B.J. Ward, actually. He's not one of our featured poets, but he was gracious enough to come this morning and do a workshop for us, and I know some in the room took a workshop with him, and I asked him to read some of his work. He has two books, right? You have a book out there, and he has a new book that's coming out. It's called Jackleg Opera, and it's going to be out in September. And he's going to read something from that, and something from his other book, which is called Gravedigger's Birthday. And he is also a recipient of a Pushcart Prize and 2 fellowships from the New Jersey State Council on the Arts and the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation. And he's an associate professor of creative writing at Warren County Community College. So let's welcome BJ.
Yeah. Well, it's an honor to be asked to read with ML and Lewis. And thank you. The title of this poem is, I'm a father of a 6-year-old, and the title of this poem is the last line in a storybook I read to my son Dylan. And all the peasants cheered for the king, the end. I close the storybook and my son looks up. He is swaddled with a bravery he knows nothing about. Astronauts floating across his pajamas. Soldiers bivouacking on his bookshelf. Knights on his lamp so that his light shines right through armor. What's a peasant, Daddy? I don't think much of the answer. A poor person, like Grandma and Grandpa. And now the story is personal. My son plays on the junkers my father works on forever. The front yard is Grandpa's cold scriptoria, and he writes everything in blue-collar serifs, spending his days off translating metal into combustion. Henry Ford invented the printing press that churned out his Bible. And my mother, with her 3 shirts that fit, her Newark accent a Cockney in my son's suburban world. When I lend my parents money, that word has to be used, lend, or else they wouldn't take it. Even poor people have pride as a lawyer. I was his age when I first knew we were poor. Are we poor? I had asked my mother. Her eyes were just beginning their descent deeper into her beauty. They may have begun to run away from the world just then at her older son's question. No, her mouth said, as obviously as possible. Her hand stroked my hair. It said, I'm erasing that question. Her tremble said, yesterday my boss held an empty wallet to my head. But were we rich somehow? Come on, you know the cliches. But were we rich in another way? My father knows how to make stillness explode. At the food town, the cashiers always smiled, for my mother was an S&H green stamp magnate. My brother and I learned how to love without dropping our eyes below the neck. If money's king, my family served it well. We only asked to be able to sleep through the night. And right now, my own son is looking up at me, seeing something he doesn't recognize. I tell him peasants live in kingdoms and shut out the light. The astronauts are still fastened in their flotation. The soldiers still guard the fairy tales. A poem's from the book coming out in September, and here's one more from that. It's called Cross-Pollination. My favorite cross-pollination is the one between Shakespearean English and Jersey City English. This particular breed of language has trouble surviving modern airs, but recalcitrantly remains in one final saying: I shit you not. Such mellifluous wings skirting inches above a manure field. It means I do not shit you. Yet no one says that. If one were to say it, we'd expect a head shake or social shunning. But I shit you not implies that the speaker is fairly well read. And furthermore, is not prevaricating about the matter at hand. My favorite instance of it came when I was told that my boss, who fired me, was fired for being a lousy boss. Bradford called me up and said, Ward, he was fired. I shit you not. Or my mother telling me an acceptance letter arrived from a college saying, you got in. I shit you not. Or Gretchen Honecker in the late 20th century parking lot of the White Castle telling me, I love you. I, a bigger fool then than I am now, said, really? And she leaned close to my ear and whispered, I shit you not. The saying is a nail driving through disbelief, expelling dismissal, peeling yes, amen, nod, 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 and tacking a friend's voice to one of those rare moments in life one would never get rid of. All right. Thank you very much. I know none of you came to hear me, and I'm very grateful, Susan, for your invitation to read. No. I'm not begging for that. But I'm going to read one more poem, get off the stage for Louis. Thank you very much for listening. In the spirit of, that was terrific, by the way. I mean, I view this, it's an honor to be here. Shit you not, right? This place is, they say that Western Native Americans had a couple spiritual centers, the Black Hills of South Dakota and the San Francisco Bay Area. If New Jersey poetry has a spiritual center, this is absolutely it, or at least one of the big ones, right? So thank you for inviting me and for keeping this going, which is nothing easy to do. Those of you who aren't familiar with my work, my name's B.J. Ward, and this book, I'm going to read one poem from it, and if you'd like to buy it, it's out there. And this is because tomorrow's Mother's Day. This is from my mom. And my son's surrogate grandmother, Maddie Tiger, is here, and you're a wonderful, important person to me. My first book is dedicated to my mother, even though there's not a single poem in there about her. And for years, people ask me, why is your first book dedicated to your mother when there's not a single poem in there about her? This poem is called, Upon Being Asked Why I Dedicated My First Book to My Mother when there's not a single poem in there about her. This book, about a quarter of the poems, I talked about this with the workshop this morning, deal with a family that's a lot like mine. I had a father who was a violent drunk. He was sober for a while before I could write the book, and I'd forgiven him, and this book's about forgiveness. But one of the byproducts of substance abuse in a family, in case you're not familiar with it, is the money's gone. The money's gone. And come 8th grade, there were words in books I had no idea what they meant. I'm the first one in my family to go to college or anything like that, so this is something extraordinary that my mother did. as Prometheus must have pocketed fire, slipping it from Olympus in the folds of his compassion and duplicity, so my mother stole a Webster's pocket dictionary. The Jamesway department store was all discounts and lighting that refused to flatter. Commerce sliding through its aisles as my mother slipped that book into her jacket, getting 30,000 words fatter. I know the arguments. That's stealing. What about the owner? What about teaching her son what's right? In truth, the entire Jamesway Corporation would go out of business 21 years later. And I'm sure it had to do with the Webster's Riverside Pocket Dictionary, whose pages held all the words of Ulysses and Paradise Lost and Look Homeward Angel, but jumbled in alphabetical order. What can I say? She stole a dictionary for me because there were no words a judge could use that would be worse than her son starving for a lexicon he could grip like a wrench and loosen all those dumb bolts in his brain. Receiving that dictionary taught me rectitude and the many dictates that come down from its cloistral mountaintop. I was suddenly rich. A son from the most indigent family in Hampton. How lucky. When I first started to rub against my language, sidle up to my own tongue, my mother stole me a book. Years later, I gave her one back. Oh, wow. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm really glad that I asked you to read. That was wonderful. Okay, and now last but definitely not least, Louis Jenkins. His most recent books are North of the Cities, 2007, European Shoes, 2008, and Before You Know It, Prose Poems, 1970 to 2005. All published by Will-O-the-Wisp Books. Jenkins was awarded 2 Bush Foundation Fellowships for Poetry, a Loft McKnight Fellowship, and was the 2000 George Morrison Award winner. Jenkins is currently working with Mark Rylance, former director of the Globe Theatre, London, on a stage production titled Nice Fish, based on Jenkins' poems, and the work premiered at the Guthrie Theatre in Minneapolis. Did that happen? Yeah, on April 6th.
Wow.
Okay, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you. What a treat to read with these guys. Wow. I didn't know it was going to be this much fun. This is a poem when ML was doing his Africa piece. I thought of this, and I opened the book, and here it is. It's called Evolution. I think it's okay not to like the idea of evolution. I can understand how one would not like to think of oneself as distantly related to a lemur, since most of us are none too fond of some of our more immediate relatives. But it seems to me that evolution is the least of our worries. For years I have accepted things as they are, or seem to be, without thinking much about them. Not now. Now I have come to realize that I don't approve of gale force winds, or high water, or volcanoes, or earthquakes. The idea of tectonic plates doesn't appeal to me. The idea that we are dependent on gravity to keep us on the ground makes me queasy. The idea that there is no up or down and we are merely sticking out from the planet. I don't like at all the idea of flight, except for birds. I don't even enjoy riding in automobiles. I believe, even though I do not practice it, that we should walk everywhere we go. But there's the problem with standing, balance, and all of that. I'm not sure that just 2 legs is a good idea. I need more sound. I wrote in this book a series of animal poems. I didn't start out intentionally to do that, but I found that I had a number of them. I went to Alaska a while back, a few years ago, and one of the places I went, they had a kind of aquarium thing with starfish in it, so you could actually reach in and touch a starfish. And then I got to reading about starfish. It seems like starfish don't do anything, but actually they move along at a rate of about 60 feet per hour. A starfish will eat anything that moves slower than it does, which excludes a great number of dishes from its diet. A starfish is all arms and appetite. It has no brain. Yet in spite of this, time-lapse photography has shown that the starfish maintains an active social life. So in these regards, the starfish is like many of the people you know. This is called Baloney. There's a young couple in the parking lot kissing. Not just kissing, they look as though they might eat each other up. Kissing, nibbling, biting, mouths wide open, play fighting like young dogs, wrapped around each other like snakes. I remember that, sort of, that hunger, that passionate intensity, and I get a kind of nostalgic craving for it, in the way that I get a craving occasionally for the food of my childhood. Bologna on white bread, for instance. One slice of white bread with mustard or Miracle Whip or ketchup. Not ketchup. One has to draw the line somewhere. And one slice of bologna. It had a nice symmetry, the circle of bologna on the rectangle of bread. Then you folded the bread and bologna in the middle and took a bite out of the very center of the folded side. And when you unfolded it, the sandwich, you had a hole, a circle in the center of bread and bologna frame, a window, a porthole from which you could get a whole new view of the world. This is a poem that Maria published in the Paterson Review. It's called Illusion. Is it true that this world, this life, is an illusion, all smoke and mirrors? It must be, because according to a recent poll, 70% of the American public believes that Ronald Reagan did a good job as president. And yet, if life is only a figment, a feint, a construction of breath and vapor, then why is it when a rock falls and smashes your toe, you go hopping around on one foot, mad with pain? Why, when you happen to look at a woman on the sidewalk and your car plows into the truck in front of you, are you dead and no longer allowed to play the game? It's an illusion, all right, but it's a damn good one. This is called A Disappointment. The best anyone can say about you is that you are a disappointment. We had higher expectations of you. We had hoped that you would finish your schooling. We had hoped that you would have kept your job at the plant. We hoped that you would have been a better father and a better son and a better father. We hoped and fully expected that you would finish reading Moby Dick. I wish that when I am talking to you, you would at least raise your head off your desk and look at me. There are people who, without your gifts, have accomplished so much in this life. I am truly disappointed. Your parents, your wife and children, your entire family. In fact, everyone you know is disappointed, deeply disappointed. Here's another one to go with Africa. This is called The Law of the Jungle. We die of silliness, finally. Remember all those nights of wine, the heated discussion, the smoky room, the music? The questions you pondered then have no relevance. Why do we live, you asked. More to the point now is, where do I live? First you forget to zip. Then as time goes by, you forget to unzip. There is a banana peel around every corner. Remember all those powerful, intense things you said back then, how the girls found you powerful and intense? You couldn't say those things with a straight face now. Anyway, those girls weren't really listening. The old lion with patchy mane and sagging belly stands up to guard his territory. He gives out a pathetic roar, and the hyenas die laughing. Big brown pills. I believe in the big brown pills. They lower cholesterol and improve digestion. They help prevent cancer and build brain cells. Plus, they just make you feel better all over. I believe in coffee and beet greens and fish oil, of course, and red wine in moderation, and cinnamon. Green tea is good, and black tea, and ginseng. I eat my broccoli. Nuts are very good, and dark chocolate. It has to be dark chocolate, not milk chocolate. Tomatoes. But I think the big brown pills really help. I used to believe in the little yellow pills, but now I believe in the big brown pills. I believe they are much more effective. I still take the little yellow pills, but I really believe in the big brown ones.